The Age of Automation sounds like a cheap Marvel movie knockoff. We all hear about the wonders of automation, but how does that automation actually affect those with disabilities? The effects can range from more independence to flawed designs that supposedly increase accessibility. The first example of an effect on the disabled is the improved independence. The following story comes from Forbes.com. Larry Bailey has no use for fancy new refrigerator that reminds him every time he is out of eggs. He could also do well without that ridiculous new changing pad that automatically changes diapers. As a disabled war veteran who lost both his legs and an arm during an explosion at an armed conflict, however, he could use some help with the little chores that he finds himself doing each day at his new house in Summer Dock, Virginia, such as regulating the thermostat, jump starting a floor fan, or even switching the lights on at his house. Thanks to the good work done by his friends over at the Tunnels to Towers Foundation, Larry's new house comes with all these features and much more. You could say that it is his country's way of giving back to him some of the independence that he's lost defending it. Larry isn't the only one. The advancements that have been made allow for those with disabilities to live much more freely around the home. There are also other inventions such as automated cars and buses that allow a disabled person to get around more independently. Which brings me to my next topic, automated driving. Mobility and driverless technology is set to be a big topic in the coming years, and it is a subject that is a major topic for those with disabilities. An article from 2025ADs.com says automated driving could change everything for those with disabilities, but according to our community, it's not perfect. Those who can't drive themselves due to complications from health issues such as disabilities are very much aware of the development of driverless cars, and of course they're excited about what it could possibly mean for them. But people with disabilities also want respectable prospects as well as their individual needs being met. It's a complex topic with multiple considerations. Today we take a closer look at some of the key points in the debate. The conversation regarding driverless cars and disability began in November 2016 with an interview with a UK transport consultant, James Welling, who has cerebral palsy. This interview, which discussed the impact of driverless cars on people with disabilities, triggered a multi-channel discussion from which arguments arose. The first argument from the original article determined that, in contrast to the general audience for driverless tech, people with disabilities often depend on being driven around in some way, and have been following the conversation on the development of automated driving from the very start. This group has offered some very strong and very surprising views on the topic. Driverless isn't just a feature that will make their daily life more convenient, it could also make an immediate game changer for their way of living. The key points from discussions surrounding the original article are summarized as: disabled people can own or share a vehicle without having to rely on special services, but self-driving cars will not replace the human function that people with disabilities depend on. But what does this all mean? Today, most people with disabilities such as a physical impairment get around either via public transportation or by using assigned driving services such as Columbus. But these means of transit often hold their own set of challenges for disabled users, like being restricted to preset routes. Driverless vehicles will automatically result in more accessible and more comfortable transit for all involved, without the need to have third-party intervention at any level. It could be cheaper too, with multiple riders having the option to share one vehicle. But as with all solutions to any complex problem, it ain't perfect. Some people will always need caretakers to get them in and out of the vehicle and even travel with them. It will mean that they have to pay a person to perform the tasks that drivers now perform, such as helping lift the person into the car, storing the wheelchair, etc. The concerns raised about people needing personal support are important in understanding that technology is not going to take over completely. There is also the argument that people with disabilities will actually lose social interactions with automated driving. But in contrast, driverless tech could also make it easier for them to get places, to meet their family, friends, and to be at social events. Apparently, the human function cannot be dismissed for this group, and it should never be suggested that it will. Therefore, it's important not to portray automated driving as a cure-all for every problem that people with physical disabilities face when traveling. Instead, solutions that maintain that crucial human factor must be prioritized. People with disabilities are more apt than the general population to embrace driverless cars. While generally positive about driverless technology, the group remains skeptical of the promises attached to it. There are some very high expectations on driverless technology and what it will mean for people with disabilities, but some big challenges to overcome must be overcome before it can be done. Even when these expectations have been met, new ones will surface. But they have to meet the initial expectations first, which will take time. But as with all things, there are drawbacks. My final topic is the drawbacks of automation. People with disabilities that affect vital functions such as mobility, vision, hearing, cognitive function often choose to move to the cities to take advantage of their comprehensive transit systems and social services. But United States law doesn't actually specify how municipalities should design and implement digital services for disabled people. As a result, cities sometimes end up adopting new technologies that can end up causing, rather than resolving, problems. This was evident with New York City's Link NYC kiosks, which were installed on sidewalks in 2016 without including any instructions in either audible form or with screen reading functionality. Shortly after they were installed, the American Federation for the Blind sued the city. The lawsuit was settled in 2017 and the kiosks have been corrected, but touchscreens in general are still not fully usable to people with disabilities. Another problem that has arisen is the social media apps that some governments have been using to solicit feedback from the residents. Blind and low vision people, along with those with cognitive issues, typically can't use the apps due to obvious reasons. And people over the age of 65 are really less likely to do anything smart with smartphones. Cities may think that they're getting the data from their residents, but if those apps aren't easily usable, they're leaving out the voices of large chunks of the population. People with disabilities also sometimes struggle with the buttons that cities install next to doorways and intersections to open doors and activate crossing signals. For example, a lot of the buttons are oddly placed, such as far from the door or on the side the door swings open to, and they're often blocked by things like decorative plants, so people in wheelchairs can't even actually access the button. Cities could also use technology to make commuting safer and more predictable for people who have cognitive disabilities. Typically, these folks have routines and have memorized what bus to get on, how many stops to go. But if the route changes or the bus isn't operating, they may run into problems. A device that tracks transportation delays and detours in real time and walks the user through how to handle the route change can make a big difference in the lives of people with cognitive issues. And this has been a topic that is very dear to me as I deal with it in my daily life. Thank you for watching this video.